Welcome to the most official, unofficial Sage podcast in the world. Is this supposed to be Sage Intact podcast? I'm just saying, but we're here. We're back. Every episode, we bring together Sage insiders, industry leaders, and global voices. Half of them deep inside the Sage ecosystem, half of them bringing a perspective from well outside it. For honest conversations about accounting, finance, and technology that you won't find anywhere else. I'm Matt Lesko.
I'm Doug Lewis.
And I'm Emily Mauder. Let's dive into this.
All right. Today, it's an exciting one. I know I say that quite a bit, but this one actually is. It's very rare when you get a real expert in the room with us. So kind of excited about this one. Donny Shimamoto. Now, Donny, we're already live and recording here. And, you know, I hate when someone reads my bio or introduction at the start of a podcast or a presentation or a conference or whatever. But Donny, yours is so impressive. I think I have to actually do this. And I'm going to even do it by the book here. I'm going to read it verbatim because it is actually very impressive. So I'm going to ask you to suffer through this before we dive into things.
All right.
And if he gets anything wrong, make sure to call him out.
I will. All right.
I don't thrive on constructive criticism. So let's not do that. Okay. I need constant positive enforcement in everything that I do in my life.
Well, I was going to say, if it's wrong, it's not criticism. It's just incorrect, period. So we're correcting it.
I hate that, Donny. I hate that. Oh my gosh. All right, let's dive into it. So Donny is the founder and managing director of IntrapriseTechKnowlogies, an advisory-focused CPA firm providing innovation acceleration and business transformation services for small businesses, middle market organizations, and nonprofits. Donny is an internationally recognized thought leader and educator in the accounting technology, IT risk management, and performance management areas. Donny's also the inspiration architect for the Center for Accounting Transformation. The center is a mind trust of innovative thinkers and experts who enable transformation by guiding accountants, auditors, and tax practitioners through the adoption of change, making the future in the accounting profession a reality. Donny has been recognized as one of the top thought leaders in public accounting by CPA Practice Advisor since 2012, a top 100 most influential people in accounting for over 10 years by Accounting Today, and was one of the top 200 CPAs in America by Forbes in 2025. Donny was co-chair of the National Conference of Lawyers and CPAs, was past chairman of the AICPA's Information Management and Technology Assurance Executive Committee, and as a former member of this governing council, Assurance Services Executive Committee, and numerous other AICPA committees and task forces. Donny, it's that not only was that a mouthful, but it was extremely impressive. I have to ask, between all of these businesses, groups, associations, boards that you sit on, all this stuff, what's something about you that has absolutely nothing to do with accounting or technology?
Well, everyone that sees me on social knows that I'm a foodie. I'm a practical foodie. So I am not one of those. I think a lot of foodie people right now are kind of, because they want to kind of turn their nose up to stuff and be like, well, I'm better and I'm better than this restaurant, and this restaurant is crap. And they also like to give constructive criticism. But mine is like, it needs to taste good. I don't care if it's a hole in the wall. It needs to not be a chain, and I need to enjoy the experience of having that meal. So that would be my non-thing. And the thing I love about the work that I do, as we were just talking about, I'm actually going to Vancouver tonight, is I get to go and travel the world and I'll try out different kinds of cuisines.
Well, I'll tell you, in Vancouver, there is a restaurant. I don't remember the name off the top of my head because I didn't know you were going to Vancouver before this, but it's right in Chinatown. And when I went there, they have these Congolese mussels. So it's a Congo recipe that the chef's mother had done or something. It's amazing. I will try to find it and send you a note on that. But when I was in Vancouver last, I ate there like 2 or 3 times because it was such good food. But I also want to know from you is, I know that you're from Hawaii. What's your favorite Hawaiian dish? Or place? We don't have to go dish. You go place. You choose.
Oh, that one is really difficult. Because for me, food, it depends on my mood. And you said Hawaiian, so if I were to go Hawaiian food, I'm probably gonna have to go actually with the whole Hawaiian plate because I like variety and that has a little bit of everything. But out of those, really, uh, I would say, well, we have this dish. It's called squid luau. Not luau like the big feast that you guys are probably used to hearing that word. It's actually it's pieces of squid that have been usually cooked separately, very tender, very soft, in a taro leaf and coconut milk.
Ooh.
It's actually kind of I don't know if this actually sounds gross, but it's kind of like the it's basically cream spinach in a sense, but it's coconut milk and taro leaves, and then the squids throughout that. That's my absolute favorite dish.
Okay. I'll have
Now,
to
can you
I eat
cook
remember
this
some
that.
dish?
crazy. I eat some crazy food where I am, so like I'm not gonna knock it, but I don't think I would try it.
It sounds interesting to say the least, Donnie. Now, can you actually make that dish, or do you just consume it?
Oh, I just consume it. I
Yeah.
probably could if the taro leaves are the one that's difficult to procure.
That's interesting. Donnie, that I didn't see that the foodie angle coming from you. So that was kind of cool. You learn something new every day. But I got to ask you, so where you sit in the accounting and technology kind of crossroads, you've been doing this for over 15 years now, helping shape practice standards, guidelines, both at the international and kind of national level here in the US, but also, you split your time helping firms implement a lot of these policies and navigate the change management and all this stuff. So, as someone who kind of sits on that fence of helping create the policy, procedures, and all this fun stuff, and actually implementing with firms, what is something that you think a lot of people might miss about the link between those two?
I would actually say that it's the fact that the standards and exist actually to protect us as a profession. And I've heard others really say like how out of touch, whether it's the AICPA or actually right now I'm involved in a IAASB, which is the international auditing level, in some of the guidance that we're writing around generative AI and the use of generative AI in the quality context. So how do we ensure that the services are delivered are of a high quality? And I don't think people, if you haven't been in discussions or if you haven't seen what happens, I don't think people appreciate that the standard setters are actually trying to even consider. In fact, on this IASB committee I'm on, my role is to represent small and mid-sized practices and to ensure that the guidance that we're generating is implementable and understandable by small and mid-size. And this one with an international group that's working, I was very, very impressed that a lot of them are specifically talking about that and thinking about, well, how would a small firm in my country actually implement this? Could they implement this? What does that look like? And how do we need to frame this so that it's not just the technical experts, whether it's a technology expert or an auditing expert, can understand this stuff and implement it. So I think that's the thing that's missed. I think a lot of criticizing, they're like, oh, they're so out of touch, they don't look at that stuff. But actually, for all the ones that I've been involved in, they really are trying to ensure that small and mid-sized firms can follow this stuff.
Can I get a little concept here? When you're talking about working on these international governing boards, I assume the AICPA is involved. That seems pretty obvious, but you're dealing with the ACA. Are you dealing with some of the other international accountancy organizations? What does that look like? Who's really at that table that and talking through these things?
It really depends on which of the boards it is. So on this particular international one, I'm trying to think if I don't think AICPA is actually at the table, specifically at this table. Um, uh, yeah, I think that's actually true because the FASB, is it FASB or is it PCA? No, PCAOB is at the table on this one. ACA, I can't remember if it's ACA or ACCA now, is also at the table. So I mean, there's a good set of representation. This particular one has a bunch of the large firms. I think all of the big four, BDO. I feel like one other big firm is in there. I'm again representing small and mid-sized firms. all of these people are primarily auditing experts, and the other one is regulators. So there's a couple of regulators, and then there are actually two vendors, so two accounting tool vendors that are in there as well. So that's where you can see there's like the diversity from a country standpoint. Everyone's kind of audit experts or tech experts, and then but the vendors and the regulators and the standard setters are all kind of there.
So can we ask what vendors?
I know. I was getting ready to ask.
This particular one is MindBridge and oh, sorry, not MindBridge. Caseware and Inflow are the two vendors
Okay.
here.
Okay. So you're having really a lot of multiple disciplines that are coming to these meetings, obviously center around that audit. I guess it's very audit focused in this conversation. What might not be obvious for everybody is, are standards pretty consistent internationally, or are these kind of meetings necessary to bring everybody kind of on the same page? And as AI and as the economy gets more global, are we having more conversations at this level about how to standardize more across regions, across countries, and so forth?
So I would say generally standards are standardized internationally, and usually it's it's the international standard setter that's generally first, because most countries look at what does the standard setter say, and then they take that and then they adapt it regionally. They localize it regionally. I'm laughing as I say that because, of course, us in the U.S. always have to do it our way, and so
Well,
and this
that's
is one of
that's maybe a good follow up kind of to that thought process. Like, is the U.S. leading the charge in a lot of this internationally, or is it kind of vice versa? Or are we just on like separate islands from everybody? What does that look like? Because it's pretty rare when someone like yourself has both, the U.S. expertise on all of these governing bodies and the international expertise in one.
So I think the answer is it depends. I'm only been involved in like 3 or 4 different international things now. Um, and I will say the US is normally ahead. And I think that's a function of the complexity of our nation, and the fact that we are generally, especially with tech, because those are the ones I'm normally involved in, we normally are ahead because we're, as a market, we're just ahead. You can even see it in our products, like Sage and all these other products. We're ahead of pretty much everybody else, for the most part. So because we're ahead, I feel like AICPA stays ahead of a lot of what's going on. But we're one of the few, if not, I can't remember if we're the only one left that follows GAP. Everyone else is on IFRS, right? So, there's also a very US centric mentality to the way AICPA and we as a country do stuff.
Well, you brought up Sage, and one of the things that, and, obviously we're the unofficial Sage Intact podcast. One of the things that we've seen in what the capability of Intact, I know it's not audit, but obviously you audit financial systems and you audit financials, and doesn't seem to be a lot of players out there from a accounting software that are truly global in what they deliver. Um, what's your standpoint on that? Where do you see Intact fitting in that global perspective, and where do you see the number one competitors? I mean, from your perspective.
Well, we would divide if so. Sage Intact, I put in mid market. I consider a mid market product, and so if I go mid market, then NetSuite, Acumatica would be the two definite ones we would go to and that's the trio that we'll always kind of see come up together. And there's other little niche things, but those are probably the three that handle the multi-currency. And then, but you raised that there's not a lot of international, and it's really that multi-currency from an international standpoint that changes the game. Because, for example, I know of firms in Africa, in other countries that are using any of our zero QuickBooks type of stuff, and it's just, instead of tracking dollars, they're tracking whatever their currency is, so they don't need the multinational, right? The multi-currency, I should say, there, and they can use whatever software we have. So, which is again where it's always interesting to me to see this whole market of, we've got a ton, like literally a ton of vendors here, and a lot of other countries, it's like 2 or 3 accounting systems, 1 or 2 auditing systems, and it just doesn't scale the way they don't have that scale that we have in our market and offerings.
Makes a lot of sense, and I see the changes that are happening, like UK and e-invoicing. You have specialty needs in Mexico. I mean, there's these things that are happening from a compliancy and a regulation that are also impacting organizations' ability to, or software's ability to keep up with that. And so it really is a change from that perspective. Thoughts on that?
Yep, no, completely agree with you. And that's where when it's always interesting because when I talk to firms that are international and they're asking, and I'm like, I can tell you what vendors we have in the States. It's a little harder for me to tell you what vendors will support your area. And then, of course, the other one that always, English is right now the international language. But when you're working, for example, in Latin America, you've got Spanish as the primary. In a lot of Asia, not just in China, but in a lot of Asia, there's Mandarin as the dominant. And so looking that's been the challenge helping some of these international firms is can I find a software that will actually support their language?
And if you ask any of the salespeople there, the answer is going to be yes, 100%. Let's sign you up, and then we'll figure out how to do it after the fact. So that could be a very slippery slope, I would imagine.
So I was helping someone evaluate Intact, and they were based in the UK. And actually, for Intact specifically, if you want to work with a partner to help implement the solution, your partner has to be licensed to sell in the different countries. So it could be a little sticky too if you're trying to recommend a US centric product in international waters and trying to find a partner to work with.
Well, when we're doing that, I normally just go to the vendor and I'm like, tell me who we need to work with. And that's even true sometimes in the States, because depending how the vendor's organized, some of them are by firm size, some of them are by geographic area. And so for us, we always go back to the vendor and say, okay, we've got a lead for you. Who do we make the introduction to?
One last question I have for you on this topic before we move forward is, we talked a lot about international, but if we bring this to the national perspective and what you're doing in supporting firms there in their governance and in the AI adoption and so forth, what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing from that these firms are facing in that process?
The biggest challenge is finding the time to actually do any of these changes right. So everyone is so busy trying to deal with everything that's going on that they aren't able to dedicate that time. And while that is one of the things my team will help do, because we act as a fractional transformation office, that we still don't know their practice, who their clients are, right? All those nuances of it. So for us, when we're working with them, we guide them through this thought process, but we need them to like, hey, take the time, go talk to this vendor, watch the demos, come back, debrief with us. What did you think? Did it make sense? What were some of the things you liked? What didn't you like? Do you think this is a fit? Why or why not? And then we kind of talk through all of those things. And sometimes it's just a matter of they're like, oh, we didn't have time to look at it yet. Oh, we didn't have time to do this. Or we didn't have time to do that. And it's kind of like you have to make the time if you want this to happen. Because especially in public accounting, in audit and tax, you've got busy season. And so you work around busy season to figure out when. And if you miss that window and we hit January, like you're not making, or even December, like you're not making any more changes for another 5 months. So there's that window that they work with. So that the time element is probably the biggest challenge.
Capacity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's got time anymore for anything, and no one can recruit, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Donny, you're viewed as quite the expert across the board. I, for the life of me, can't figure out why, but people seem to like you. And when an individual firm or an association calls you in, whether it's to help, form their policies, procedures, whatever it looks like, or to solve a specific problem, what does the call sound like when they reach out to you? Is there like a specific issue you generally deal with? Is it more, hey, we can't figure this out, it's broken, we don't know what to do with it? Or, Donny, we're trying to look 3 to 5 years ahead. where everything's going, can you help us figure out, what that's going to look like? What's kind of that average call you get from an individual firm or the associations of firms that you work with?
The most common one is we're thinking about changing X, whatever it is, tax software, accounting software, something. That's probably the number one. Number two is we're having a problem with something. Can you help us figure out why we're having this problem? But you actually set it up well, which is my normal next question though is I don't want to change this one thing without knowing the whole picture of what you're trying to do. So our question normally changes into, tell me where you want to be 2 to 3 years from now. And we used to say 3 to 5. That's too far right now with the way tech is changing. So it's like, tell me where you want to be 2 to 3 years from now. Let me understand where you're at now. And then let's figure out what we call the transformation roadmap to get you there. And it becomes a series of all of these little projects for changes. Could be big, like change to new accounting system, like change to Intact, or it could be switch out, use this AP solution, whatever that case may be. But it could also be non-technical things. So part of it may be you need to change some of your compensation plans. You need to change you need to address some cultural issues because you're having attrition and turnover. We also require that they come with a business strategy. So part of it is you don't know your business strategy. You need to go talk to like some marketing strategy type people, come up with that. And then we can finish helping you customize that even more, because otherwise we're just kind of working in general, which you're not going to be successful in the longer run.
You sound to me like a business coach on steroids for accounting firms.
Yeah. And you're taking like a holistic view of the organization. So you're not just focused like on one thing.
Right. Yes. I'm glad you guys can hear that. So we differentiate ourselves from business coaches. We're transformation coaches because the business coaches often work with them on strategy. And so that's why we purposely don't do strategy, because most of the business coaches also can't execute. And so our whole thing is come and we will actually help you look at that, create the plan, and then execute on it. And coaching you along the way through all of these changes, as well as holding your hand through actually doing the actual implementation of everything going through.
And may I ask, like, what size firms are you typically working with?
We actually run the full gamut. So our smallest is our sole proprietors, and we're really helping them just try and optimize their practice, often just for themselves. Some of them are going through growth. A lot of them are like, I'm a sole for a reason. I want to stay a sole. So we work with them in a particular way. And I've worked with, a whole bunch of top 100 firms, top 20 firms. The role's just different. So in the sole, we're really working with them very closely. When we're working with small and mid, it's normally kind of when we're working with small, it's more of an outsourced, maybe that's the better way to say it. It's more of an outsourced. We're kind of doing everything for them. When we're working with mid, they usually have teams that are good enough. We call those our guided contracts. So we are like, we're going to walk you through what we would normally do, but you're going to actually do the work. We will review it and help talk you through everything. When we're working with really large, they're normally just tapping into my brain on like, what should we do for this? What's the approach? Is this approach the right approach? Review policies, review plans. So it depends on the size, and we actually tailor our services.
I have to ask, is there a common thread between everything from that solo person to that top 100 of like common issues that you see? Because I
Just
think
like that,
and the reason
that number one issue. You mentioned when people call you, it's either I'm stuck, I can't figure something out, or I want to look forward a couple years. If they're stuck and can't figure something out, is there that common like, hey, here's the number 1, 2, 3 things it's like a broken record on repeat you hear from these people?
It comes back to the time. It's either, even for the souls, it could be I'm working too much and I need to leverage automation more, and I need to be able to, I need to free up my time. And the other ones are also either it could also be like, we don't have enough staff. We can't get the right staff. So which is also becomes can we automate what we can so we can do more with the staff that we have? I also like it when they come to us and they're like, we're overworking our staff. We need to automate, not to grow, but to really just make the workload more reasonable for our current staff to handle. So it's, again, that time comes back as that key thing.
So
when you need to automate, different things go in the equation, like upgrading softwares, like it could be Sage Intacct, could be other things, integrating AI into their daily work. Um, what other automation would you recommend?
Uh, I mean, most of it's going to be some flavor of that, right? It's either a new
Hmm.
tool that'll help take care of a task, uh, leveraging some automation, whether it's AI or not, to help at an individual productivity level. The other one will end up being workflow or coordination software, because most people don't realize that that creates work as well, right? The whole function of middle management is to coordinate work. And this is actually one that's becoming very interesting with the impact of AI, where the middle management is coordinating work and they review work. Well, as we get rid of a lot of the lower end work and the doer or the preparer work gets automated, then now the entry level becomes the reviewer. So how are we actually transitioning or teaching the entry level to immediately come in and be a reviewer? So this is why we have to look at more than tech. In that case, we're looking at learning and development. We're looking at, how do I train someone to be a reviewer without having done the prep part of the work, whether that's in bookkeeping, in tax, or in audit. And so it's really looking, which is why we have to work with the whole spectrum. We can't just work with tech. We have to work with learning and development.
Hmm.
We have to work with position descriptions. What are the expectations, which turns into performance management. And then the coordination piece also looks at teamwork, how teams are structured, how the work is being done, which then starts to come into workflow and workflow management systems. So it all kind of gets tied in together. And that's why we're coming in and kind of triaging, like, where is the actual issue? Because sometimes it's a tech issue, sometimes it's a people issue, sometimes it's a team issue, sometimes it's an owner issue because they're, like, say, too heavy-handed or something. Like, it could be all over the place. And so that's why we come in and, like, tell us where you want to be, and we'll tell you all these different changes you got to make to be able to get there.
Hmm.
let me dig a little deeper in this one, because I think that there's been a lot of conversation around AI automating that entry level work. And yeah, what does the professional development path look like for that person coming out of college today? And I think that's a big question mark that's going on. And I'd love to dig deeper for you to tell us sort of what you're seeing and what you see work, where you think maybe needs to be invested in. Like where do you see firms going in that, or where do you think firms should be going and not seeing it?
I think firms need to go back to sort of and I say sort of the apprenticeship model. So when you look at accounting as a profession, we were originally, I say originally, but recognizing that we have hundreds of years, our profession is hundreds of years old. So not originally back hundreds of years, originally to say the 80s, 90s. We were considered part of the vocational technical education, not scientific STEM. And that's a whole nother conversation. I'm anti accounting as STEM. But ours follows that apprenticeship model. It's, you come in, you as a junior accountant or as a junior tax preparer, you're learning the trade, you're taught by the master, which is the CPA or whatever certification you have, right? How do you do this stuff? And it's oversight, which is why that master is the one that's signing the actual work in the end. And eventually you become your own master and you form your own shop and you start your own firm, right? So it's like, when you look at that, it's the apprenticeship trade model, really, compared to, say, a lawyer, or actually lawyer's not a good example because lawyers kind of follow that too, but compared to like a doctor that ends up working, and some of them may form their own practice, but most of them are going to end up in some type of medical system. Right. So we've got that difference. And we also don't require that high level degree that the doctors and the lawyers need to have. And so we kind of you really just kind of need that bachelor's, especially now with the changes to CPE. So when you talk about the change that's actually occurring right now, and it's this need to more quickly be able to be a reviewer, it really comes to the training, which is the bridge, the new hire training, which is the bridge between what you learn in school and the work that you're doing. And over the last, I'm going to say 20 years, there's been this kind of squishing of the bridge. And you've got employers going at the schools saying, you're not giving us people ready to work. And the schools are like, what do you want us to drop from our curriculum? And I'll also mention I've been involved at the national level in relooking at accounting curriculum. I've also done school accounting program accreditation review. So I've seen multiple school programs. I understand the standards around what it means to be an accredited accounting program. So I'm looking at that and you're like, you're trying to squeeze them here. And that's because the employers are getting squeezed because they're like, we got to get people working as fast as possible, as fast as possible. And so this middle onboarding is the one that's getting squeezed. And anyone that's worked for large public accounting has probably been through what I went through when I started with Coopers and Lybrand at the time, where you started and you went through an entire week of onboarding, and you learned how does the firm do its audits, what is the auditing software, and you went there and you worked through case studies just like as if you were in school and you went through case studies. So I think this onboarding piece is the piece we have to fix. Now, part of that too, though, I think is the evolution of the actual accounting curriculum to be more problem-based. Because right now it's a lot of memorization. And if you're taking the CPA exam, that's a lot of memorization as well. But if you look at the medical profession and the doctors, their entire endpoint of their academic part is case-based. It's problem-based learning is the official academic term there, problem-based learning. And then they go and they do their residencies, which is they're going and they're actually practicing or getting to do stuff, right? Which is sort of that apprenticeship side. They're going working under a master doctor who is able to teach them, correct them along the way. And so if you look at the parallels in the way things are executed, we need to finish that evolution up towards being full profession and having problem-based learning, having that residency equivalent kind of thing, hopefully without the craziness, because we all hear about how the doctors all burn out during that residency, right? And it's help for them. And that's what we're trying to get rid of in the profession. We're trying to get rid of busy season and this need to pay your dues and stuff.
Wait, are you implying that there's some burnout in the accounting profession, Donny? Because that's the first I've heard of this. This is news to me.
This is one we definitely have to correct you on, rather than giving some constructive criticism.
What did I say? I don't thrive on being corrected. Well, you brought up a good point. When you look at like curriculum, kind of changing the pathway and all that fun stuff. Donny, you're a busy man. You don't have a lot of time with all the boards and groups and associations you're involved with. But you built the Center for Accounting Transformation kind of on top of everything that you're doing. What was the core reason behind that? Was there like a specific gap you're trying to close in the profession, or is it just more, I have to get this information out into the ethers and hope that it seeps in everywhere and we can make some real change in the profession?
You hit it on the nail again, Doug. So that's
what I need. I need that type of.
Yeah, don't make his head any bigger.
Good.
So exactly what you said. I was listening to people. This was actually pre-pandemic. I had been listening to people who said, yeah, and they were referring to me and others. And they're like, yeah, you thought leaders, you all tell us what we have to do, why we have to do it, whatever. No one tells us how. And I kept hearing that. And I went, you're right. You are completely right. So pre-pandemic, I had started pivoting what I talk about already to more towards the how, and to explain to them, this is what you need to do. So even almost everything that we consult on, I also teach, because I'm like, you don't have to hire us. I will teach you how. You determine whether or not, based on what I've taught you, you think you can do it. And if you need help, we'll help you, which is how we also came up with this guided, because they went, well, I could do this part, but I can't do the rest of that, or I don't know enough about like the software ecosystem, so I need your brain for that. And we're like, okay, I got a model for you for that. So that's also how we evolved our service offering, so that we can actually teach them. So that was the start of the center, where we went, you know what, we're tired of everyone telling us what we need to do, not tell us how. And so the people that we've gathered for the center are the ones that are willing to share their knowledge rather than kind of hoard their knowledge, and the ones who are willing to work with, especially small and mid-size. So that's the other focus of the center. It's small and mid-size firms as well as small and mid-size businesses. And we're trying to help them in a more cost-effective manner to actually work through all of these changes that are very complex, because as I described earlier, they're all very interconnected.
Can I ask a question? Because before we started recording and so forth, you said you're software agnostic, you're product agnostic. And so you go into all these different firms. I'm sure you've seen everything under the sun when it comes to firm management software, accounting products, all that kind of stuff. If we just went from a high level, what do you look for in software when you evaluate it? And what is it? What are some of the things that it's like absolutely not? We need to change this because of this. And what are things that you absolutely look for in a software that makes it something that you say it's worth investing in?
Oh, that's a really tough question. So because we are agnostic, we're normally going in just to understand what is the software good at versus what is it not good at. Because I mean, just like any other consultant, and this one I say tongue in cheek, but also it's very true. It The answer is it depends. Like, what's the right software? Because we have clients that come to us that are like, tell us which software is the best one for us. And I'm like, I actually can't do that. There are these three that, and especially today compared to say 20 years ago, there's a lot of feature parity. And so it's like, here's the three that are probably the right fit. Out of the instead of 10 or 15, I can narrow them down to three. These are the three that you probably want to look at because they're the right for the functionality that you need, for the price that you want to pay, and for what your firm or even business does. This is probably the closest fit for you.
And I'm not looking for specific software, but sort of like features or expectations of a software, whether that's AI enabled or embedded, or whether that is, I'm gonna throw out the easy ones, cloud based versus server based products at this point, things of that nature.
Yep. So generally, the biggest one is just usability to me. So to me, especially in small and mid, it needs to be very intuitive. It should be something that whether it's me or my staff can go in and kind of intuitively understand what's happening. If there's a lot of explanation, I don't want that. It's interesting that you said cloud-based. So originally I would have said yes on cloud-based, and yes, in the States, cloud-based, definitely. But when I start to look internationally, and then also when I look at I actually even shouldn't say smaller cities. When I look at smaller states, there's a lot of rural that don't have really good internet connections. And so there actually there are times when we would say, I need something on premises. So that's why, like, it actually depends. If I were in Africa has rolling power outages. And so they need on premises because they lose their connection all the time for hours at a time.
Yep. So I kind of want to stick with the learnings and so forth of what you're bringing into the firm, and really talk about from this guided approach, what if we had some different components, going back to that conversation, what you see consistently across the board, where we know time is a problem, but where do you see your most common solution points? Does that make sense?
Is the question more like the type of software to implement,
No,
or the
I was shifting in more to
functionality?
what hit. So I probably didn't say it well enough, but
You
when it
didn't?
comes to the center itself, you guys are deploying solutions. You're acting as guides to these firms and training to these firms. What's kind of the most popular coursework or the most needed curriculum that you're seeing firms come to you with?
Ooh. Right now, of course, with everything, it's people trying to understand AI and what
And
they're
it's
doing.
always changing. So how do you keep up with that? Like you could put together a course today, but then a month it's out of date.
You're completely right, which is why we don't have, well, we have some instructors that will do actual, like, how to use ChatGPT and stuff like that. But it's also why we haven't invested in that, because there's not a return on investment. And that's where everyone's asking me, like, where's the courses on how to AI? And I'm like, there's aren't very many, if any at all. And
You're like
also,
you're
I
like
love the way you
ask ChatGPT. It could tell
I
you.
just
yeah, it's
the
good to teach you.
the way that you said that, where's the course on how to AI was just phenomenal. Like, I can actually see that being asked to you, and you're just sitting there just going, "Oh god."
Yeah.
This
Well,
is gonna.
also the other reason I do that is I will also say I fundamentally believe we do not need to know how to how to do AI. In our profession, most of us, the vast majority of us, are going to be end users. We're going to use AI that's embedded in products like that we already use, like Sage Intacct has AI in it. You didn't have to learn how to put the AI into Sage. And even if you're using one of these other tools that are kind of like an AI assistant, I'm not talking about ChatGPT, but the accounting ones. If you're using them, they've already embedded AI into those tools. And so you're learning how to interact with that tool, which is not your standard. I'm going to create this prompt. I'm going to create this skill. They've already created the skills. They already have prompts embedded within. You're just going to talk to it like a staff member and ask
So
it
it's
to do
gonna
stuff for
it's
you.
kind of gonna be like the learning that they're already doing to stay up to date on these products. It's
Exactly.
just gonna be
Exactly.
part of it.
Exactly.
You can tell me if this is an unfair question, but you brought up Sage Intacct and other products. Do you have an opinion across the different accounting softwares of who's incorporating AI better than others, and why you feel that way? And there's a difference between self-built AI versus taking an MCP server and connecting Claude and so forth. And I think it's two different components that not everybody really understands. Any thoughts, opinions on that side of it?
I would say I'm actually going to say no. If you look at a lot of the product, it has they have AI built in, but it's stuff that we already know, right? Like Sage Intacct has the invoice reading, the vendor invoice reading. So you email it to that particular email address. They read and scan it in, which normally we would have put an AP add-on, pick and choose your poison, right? On AP add-ons, you would normally would have set it to an AP add-on and had them integrate and feed it into Sage Intacct. It's now in Sage Intacct itself, so you can send that in. Um, they've got their chat thing that they're putting as well, where you can query it, and normally again that would be a separate product. So I do kind of like that they're bringing it in, and so now I don't have to have these separate products. So that's kind of a good thing in one sense. On the other hand, all of you know that when I've got the suite of things and it's all together, it's normally going to not be as good as my point solution, which is why we still do work with the AP products. And there's still quite a number of AP products that are very, very dominant because they're doing more than just that bill. They're doing the expense reporting also. A lot of them are starting to do the credit cards or corporate card purchase card management. And a lot of them are now adding bank accounts into that, which I would never expect Sage Intacct to end up doing a bunch of that kind of stuff. It's a completely different business. So it's interesting to kind of see, but all the vendors are approaching things a little differently, but all of them now are kind of reading the bills. A lot of them are starting to correct or suggest postings. So there's all these kind of standard things that once we get through this hype cycle and everything becomes kind of that new level of table stakes, we're going to see, I think, a lot of feature parity.
So what's the absolute worst software vendor out there for accounting? Name the top 3 worst solutions you've ever seen. I want to get really, really personal with it. Donny, you've been very grateful with your time here. To wrap up, a couple questions that are just kind of burning my mind here. The first of which is you're involved in so many of these different, governing bodies and policy and implementation with individual firms and businesses. You do all of this crazy stuff. Why are you so passionate about the accounting profession? Why not just move on to greener pastures?
For someone like myself, and I mean you read and thank you for putting it out. I guess I should thank you for putting us through reading all of my accomplishments and stuff. For me, part of it was it's the connection to that higher purpose. And when you look at what our profession does and our role in the world, it's not just keeping money flowing. It's not just the accounting and the tax returns. What we're really doing is we're working in the communities. We're working across the communities. We're that connection point. And even whether you're inside the company and as a controller CFO, or whether you're outside as the auditor or the tax preparer, or we have accountants that are in the regulators, we have accountants that are on these international standard setting boards, we have accountants that are in the education profession teaching the kids. we're like everywhere within society, but all of our rules are about protecting the public in the end. And protecting the public plays itself out in different ways, like the controller CFO calling out that fraud or that intentional misstatement that so let's say it's the CEO that's trying to commit that, and the CFO quits, and they're like, I'm not putting up with this. I'm not putting my name to this. I have a higher ethical standard. And so it's this higher purpose of doing what's right for the public or for our communities and our world, and then also the higher ethical standard that we hold ourselves to. That those are the things that really resonated with me, and I then said, we need to make this profession a priority.
So you're actually white knighting this, is what I heard. You are the all around good guy in this profession. That's rare to hear, because everyone always talks about profit, workflow, blah blah blah, all this fun stuff. But the fact that you're actually trying to actually make a difference inside of not only the firms themselves, but the client bases that they actually work with, I think is refreshing to hear. And if an accounting firm leader only does one thing differently after the conversation here today, Donny, what would you want that one thing to be?
Make the time to make the change, because that is something that has to be very intentional. And it may not be that leader that's the one that does it. In fact, a lot of times it's not that partner level that's the one that needs to make the change. They need to make the time and make the space on their staff schedule, and they need to lower that billability expectation. They need to give them the space and the authority to actually work through these solutions and to enforce the change that's coming through. Like, that's the biggest thing to do, is support whoever their change maker is going to be in their firm.
And do you find that, because it's good advice, do you find that change maker, that champion, whatever you want to refer to them as inside the firm, is that usually like an outside new hire? Is it an existing staff? Is it a partner level? Is it a manager? Who kind of takes that realm? And at what point does it make sense to go out and hire someone in-house to really run the gambit, whether it's a CIO, CTO, whatever it looks like?
Again, I gotta give you the consultant's answer of it depends. So you want someone with that higher tech acumen. Doesn't have to be a tech expert. In fact, especially in the accounting side, you need someone that is more tech savvy, but also, more importantly, actually understands the work being done. That's the biggest flaw I see in a lot of these vendors. They're IT people trying to create an accounting or tax solution, and the way they approach it is from an IT lens, and it's like, this does not make any sense at all to us as an accountant. So really kind of looking for that set, also that willingness to learn and that openness and willingness to make mistakes, because that is also one of the biggest things. It's like a lot of accountants want to be perfect, right? Balance to the penny, as often the saying goes, or reconcile to zero, and that is not going to be it. Especially with AI, you're going to experiment, you're going to try different things out, and you might make a few mistakes along the way, and they need the space to make those mistakes as well.
What I'm hearing is, if you invest in AI as a firm, do it to increase capacity so you can invest in transformation. That's what I'm hearing.
Almost. If you invest in technology, because AI itself is not always the solution. If you invest in technology, you use it to create capacity. Yes.
See, he corrected you, which makes sense to me. I mean, you never correct me on anything.
I love constructive criticism.
Do you? That's new to me. Donny, you've been very gracious with your time. For better or worse, we always end these things with a terrible dad joke. For whatever reason, I always love to throw it out to our guest. Donny, do you have a terrible dad joke on standby?
I do not.
You do not? Okay.
Because I detest them. And so that's one of those things I would not contribute to that madness.
All right, let's think here.
Doug loves them.
You're talking about the whole foodie thing at the beginning, and the weird squid cream spinach dish or whatever you're describing. You got me thinking. So let's keep it oceany, beachy. Why don't oysters share well with others?
Because they clam up.
No, but that's a good answer. But that's not mine. Because they're a little shellfish. Come on, you guys. Oh, see, so for those just listening and not watching, everyone's hysterically laughing, but the microphone's just cut out for whatever reason, so it's just me.
I know there's a text between the three of us in which there was a whole reel on dad jokes that were about Doug, not Doug Lewis, but just the name Doug. And I'm still mad that that's not what Doug is bringing into it. So Emily, rewatch that, and you're gonna have to do one of those dad jokes for next one.
I'll take it over next time, Doug.
Yeah, well, you got to step up your game. Absolutely. But Donny, thank you so much for bringing your knowledge, your experience, your expertise to the audience here. This was shockingly insightful. So that's a wrap. Thanks for everybody. See you next time on the Unofficial Sage Intact podcast.
See you next time.
Thanks for having me.